There are 7 popular myths that hold business leaders back from losing the weight that they want to and keeping that weight off for good. In this video, I'm going to start from myth number 7 and work my way down to the most popular myth. Throughout, I'm going to tell you the actual science that you need to understand to make sure that these myths don't hold you back from getting the results that you want to. Now, I just want to quickly explain why I get so frustrated when I hear myths like the ones I'm about to share. In 2020, I was finishing my master's degree. I was coaching elite athletes. I was working in a gym as a personal trainer, helping business owners and business leaders lose weight and keep it off. And I was also in the process of setting up my first fitness education business with my brother to qualify new personal trainers. Whilst I was working in the gym, I used to hear all sorts of absolute rubbish where people would talk about some of the myths that I'm about to share with you, and I would visibly see how much it held them back from actually getting the results that they wanted. And what was even worse was that the personal trainers would validate these myths because they didn't know any better as well. There is only one real way to understand if what you are being told is rubbish or not, and it's by applying an evidence-based framework. And this is how it looks. You want to assess, is this information supported by science? Am I being told about it by a real expert? And do they have data to support the claim that they're making? And is that data also specific to me and my life as well? It's only at the center of these 3 things can you really assess if it's the right thing for you. Now let's get into debunking the myths. So myth number 7 is skipping breakfast helps you lose weight. That statement by itself is actually incorrect. You will only lose weight if you are burning off more calories than you are consuming, whether you skip breakfast or not. So the problem with this statement is that if people are just skipping breakfast, but they're not managing their calories throughout the rest of the day and the rest of the week, and then also doing the proper exercise and health habits, this does not work. And what it actually does is it causes people to overeat later in the day because they starve themselves, get to a point where they're just so hungry that they can't make good decisions because they become overridden by emotions. So I have a massive problem with this when people aren't regulating their energy properly throughout the day, and it just causes them to crash at some point. Myth number 6, you can target on your body where you lose fat from. As a coach, if I honestly had £1 for every time that I've been told somebody wants to tone up, I genuinely would be a millionaire. But the reality is you can't decide on your body where that fat comes from. When you see influencers on the internet giving you this ab burning workout that's going to burn the fat from your stomach, it simply does not work. You have to create the calorie deficit, and where you lose fat from will be largely determined by your genetics. So before you go following a fitness influencer's plan, what you need to understand is that their genetics are probably set up in a way that they don't have much fat stored around their abs. So they will find it easier to have visible abs. This is where you need to do the thing that's right for you and be at a body fat percentage that is healthy and sustainable for you, instead of trying to get to an influencer's level of health. So no, unfortunately, you cannot target where you lose fat from. You lose fat from wherever your body decides. And an interesting fact is that a lot of the fat that you lose actually gets breathed out, which is a bit of a weird one to think about. Myth number 5 is that exercise alone will make you lose weight. And I see this constantly with people who go on a weight loss journey and they will put all of their energy and focus into getting into the gym and absolutely smashing themselves into the ground, whether that's with a personal trainer, an exercise class, or just by themselves training ridiculously hard. And what they actually do is they cause their body so much stress from their training that they then can't do the things that are going to influence their weight loss the most, which is calorie control through the foods that they eat, and then also just being more generally active throughout the day with walking. The interesting thing is that walking is the place where you will burn the most calories on average throughout the week, so it's easy to increase and it stresses your body far less than smashing yourself in the gym. And the other fact is you can go in the gym, work ridiculously hard, 10 out of 10 effort for 3 hours a week, but if you don't get your food right, you still won't lose weight. And because business leaders are typically very stressed anyway, they are then just adding stress on top of stress, so that when it comes to trying to make better decisions around food, because they've stressed themselves so much, they can't make those good decisions because their body is simply craving an escape from the stress. So no, exercise alone will not help you lose weight. Myth number 4 is that willpower is the key to losing weight and keeping it off. I really understood how much of a myth this was working with elite athletes, because I had an assumption that the elite of the elite athletes had ridiculous willpower. But what I actually discovered was that they definitely didn't. They, just like everybody else, did not want to train all of the time. They felt exhausted and felt like getting rid of sessions, not doing them. But what they did, and this is what actually works for losing weight and keeping it off, is they designed systems in their life that made doing the actions as easy as possible. And then they also built an identity around the activity that they did, so they didn't even have to remind themselves to do it. Everybody else just expected it from them, so they always did the right thing. And you can do this too. Really, really simply, you can ask yourself the question, especially when it comes to your nutrition and training, is how can you make this enjoyable? How can you make it feel easy for you? How can it be as convenient as possible? And how can you construct your weekly routine in such a way that socially it gets reinforced for you? Do you need to post on social media? Do you need to tell more people what you're doing? If you ask and answer these questions, what you'll start to do is you'll start to set your life up in a way that makes it easy for you. And it really is simple things like, do you need to buy meal prep? Do you need to not buy certain snacks? There's such a variety of things, but it's got to be specific to you in your life. So ask and answer those questions. Myth number 3 is that fat burning foods are a quick fix. So science is really, really clear on this one. No food burns fat. Being in a calorie deficit burns fat. Some foods will speed up your metabolism slightly, but not in such a significant way that if you are not in a calorie deficit, you still will not lose weight. So it's just a waste of time to focus on your green teas, your lemon in your water, without getting the basics right, which is calorie deficit through reducing the amount of food you're eating, making sure that you're eating a higher quality amount of food, and making sure you're doing exercise in a way that you enjoy and that is sustainable long term, where you're going to see continued weight loss week on week. Myth number 2 is that eating late at night causes weight gain. You'll probably see the trend now, but if you ate all of your 2,000 calories at night time, but over the week did enough exercise and was balancing things in the right way, where you ate 2,000 calories every day and you were in a calorie deficit, you would still lose weight. Your body simply does not know what time of day it is. What might happen is that the next day you might be a little bit heavier on the scales, but if we zoom out long enough, over time you will lose the weight. So the same for this. If you get your habits right, if you build your calorie deficit in a healthy, sustainable way, and if you get your exercise habits in, you will continuously lose weight. And then the final myth number 1, and this is something that I constantly get asked all the time, is that people believe that carbs make you fat. This is completely wrong. Too many calories make you fat. Whether those calories were all carbohydrates or not, the balance will still dictate whether you are putting weight on or losing weight. And then what I see people do is they get rid of all their carbohydrates. They go on one of these carnivore diets and they do it for a little bit. They start to say they feel good, but long term it's not sustainable, because the reality is they really enjoy carbs, and also carbohydrates fuels high intensity exercise that you do. So whenever I hear this, I think, would I get an elite athlete to do that who's at the top of their game? And no, I never would, because I know the carbohydrates are important for high intensity activity for them to perform at their best. So when I hear people doing this, I think, oh, well, at some point you're eventually going to have to give up, because carbs are enjoyable and they also fuel performance, and most people's energy takes a massive dive off a cliff, which is just never sustainable long term. Again, it comes down to these key things if you want to lose weight and keep it off long term. You need to create the calorie deficit by reducing how much you're eating and picking healthier choices, because if you are eating less, you need to eat higher quality food for you to be energized throughout the day. You need to make sure that within that, it is something that is sustainable for you. So you're still enjoying your foods during the week. It's actually really convenient for you to maintain, and you're not massively restricting yourself in such a way that at some point you're going to fall off the bandwagon and just go back to what you were doing before because it's just too difficult. The next thing you need to make sure that with your exercise routine, you're mainly focusing on increasing your steps and getting in the gym to be healthy. That's weight training and doing activity that you really enjoy. If you don't enjoy your training and exercise routine and you don't build it up in a way that's convenient, again, you're not going to stick to it long term. So eventually you will stop and you will go back to doing what you were doing before and you will put all that weight back on. And then the final thing is that after you lose the weight, you need a plan of action of how you're going to maintain your new weight. What I see most people do is they'll calorie count, get to their weight, and then they'll just sack everything off. What you need to do is when you get to your new maintenance weight, you need to record things still. So you need to record what does a week look like when you're counting calories, when you're managing your food really well, when you're still enjoying it, when you're doing your training. How does that actually all look in a maintenance week? And you need to do that for a couple of weeks, and then you need to start slowly taking the stabilizers off. So you need to stop counting calories, you need to stop tracking things so rigidly, you need to stop weighing yourself so much. So you get to this point where you're starting to do things automatic, and you can maybe weigh yourself once a week and your weight doesn't change too much because you know roughly what you should be doing in that week. And then you want it to act a little bit like a thermostat. If you go 2 to 3 kg above your new healthy weight, you want the thermostat almost to kick in. You then just pull out your weight loss tools, out your toolkit, you get back down to that healthy weight, relearn that maintenance. Maybe you were still being a little bit too restrictive at your new maintenance weight, so you need to get clear on what a fun maintenance week really looks like. And then the last piece of advice I would give you is that one of the most important things to keeping that weight off long term is proper stress management. People don't overeat calories to meet their calorie needs. They overeat the calories to meet their psychological needs because their body is under so much stress. But you need to get very clear on how to manage your stress in your body to keep yourself in a healthy state, because the less stress your body is under, the less likely you are going to be to go to food to then actually manage that stress.